The story opens on a young man standing atop a sea of bodies and debris. He asks Lu why if they weren't sworn brothers. He demands to know why he did this to him. Lu Wai materializes a system screen, complete with a panel and audio, and asks if he remembers. He asks if he remembers how the first calamity began. How monsters poured out of strange portals in space, destroying everything in their path. These portals were later called dungeons. Those who came into contact with them gained powers, which became known as classes. That's why class groups were formed, to conquer dungeons and claim victory. But that is precisely why he must eliminate the protagonist. He has become uncontrollable. Powerful class users can easily shatter the Empire's order, and he, having surpassed the SSA rank, was the most dangerous enemy of all. This ultimate power should belong to the royal family. Only then can the Empire remain stable. The protagonist screams, "Is that why you took the lives of my family and my comrades?" Lu Wai repeats that it's for the Empire's stability. In response, the protagonist unleashes his power, but something flies at him, striking him from behind and causing a massive explosion. The protagonist's power vanishes in the blast. Lu Wai reveals he tampered with his armor some time ago. He adds that the explosion also laced his wounds with poison. After an SS rank battle, he should have no way to resist. Besides, he had an entire army prepared. He should consider this a sign of his final respect. The protagonist remembers when they were young, sitting by a campfire, thinking it was a sick joke that they would be brothers for life. Suddenly, a system notification appears. The hidden skill, Mirror World, has been activated. It will allow him to reset everything. The protagonist looks at his reflection in the lake as his soul begins to sink. Decades later, at the same lake, a group of kids has a boy hanging from a tree. They say he must be dead by now. One of them punches the boy in the stomach, telling him to stop with the dead-eyed stare. They decide to dunk him in the water again. The boy insists he wasn't faking it, but his face is forced under the lake's surface. The group says he should last longer this time, as it's his lesson. The way the water exploded in his face was hilarious. The boy spits blood, asking why him? Why did it always have to be him? As he thinks this, the protagonist's soul hears his cry. On the surface, a boy with glasses begs them to stop, saying he'll really die this time. But the group's leader says if he's about to die, he should just heal himself, since he's a singer. The nerd, however, was a total hypocrite. He was the one who led them all to find the boy. If he dies, it'll be all the nerd's fault. He claims he only did it because of them. But the leader questions if he's trying to turn the tables. And now his punching bag was getting full of himself. He readies his fist, calling him ungrateful. But a loud rumble comes from behind them. Something is happening in the river. The world itself seems to fracture. The boys wonder if it's a dungeon and why it appeared there. They decide to run, shouting that there's a dungeon behind them. The nerd looks back before fleeing. He thinks that the boy is still there and that there's no time to think. He has to save him first. Meanwhile, the dungeon begins to spawn monsters. The nerd wonders why the ropes won't come loose. One of the monsters spots him. It rushes forward to strike with its sword, but the protagonist grabs the nerd's shirt, pulling him out of the path of the strike. He moves his hand toward the goblin and uses his skill, Glacial Impact, but the system only notifies him that he healed a lesser demon. It failed because its health was already full. The nerd freaks out, screaming about what the hell he was doing healing the enemy. He uses his shield to defend the protagonist. Yunxie opens his system and notices his class is Singer. He also sees the name Yunxie and realizes this isn't his original body. Normally, when someone first enters a dungeon, they get the system and are assigned a random initial class. This was unchangeable. After that, they would grow stronger by clearing dungeons and gaining skills from their classes. But he was a warrior who had reached the pinnacle of power. He reflects that he had used the skill called Mirror World. After that, he was locked in this world until he heard the cries of this boy on the brink of death. He wonders if he revived in this body. It wasn't exactly a happy thought, but he was still grateful. It gave him a new chance for revenge. The nerd shouts at Yunxie that the monsters are surrounding them and he needs to help soon, as he can only handle 3 of them. Yunxie thinks that this body is still weak. Besides being a small fry compared to him, all of his current skills are useless. Singer was a very niche class and all its abilities were support-based. It was outclassed by every other class. It was an unimpressive class that everyone looked down on. With his old combat instincts, he can hold his own for a bit, but he needs a way out of this fast before his stamina runs out. He thinks that the hidden skill, Mirror World, is his only hope. He wonders how it works and tries to use it on the lesser demon, but the conditions hadn't been met. Yunxie wonders if the level is too low or if he needs something to reflect off of. When the demon passes over a puddle, he tries to use it again, but gets a fail due to insufficient level response. Yunxie dodges an attack, thinking the level is too low. So Mirror World needs a reflective surface to be activated, but he can't change the level thing yet. He should try another target. He aims for the monster's club. However, it fails again due to a lack of level. He tries to use it on the clothes, but it fails again. The nerd screams at him to stop wasting time with his useless skills. He shouts that he can't hold on much longer. Suddenly, an immense light fills the dungeon. A malformed level 10 demon king appears, roaring in an unknown tongue. The nerd mutters that they're all doomed. An elite monster like this requires at least a level 10 party to defeat. Hundreds of lights like the first one fill the dungeon. The nerd falls to the ground, trembling with fear. An army of elite level monsters forms before him. Kio Xi tries to use Mirror World on a stone, but fails due to the level difference. He thinks that if he can't even do it with a stone, the level gap must be too large. Or maybe there's another reason. He aims at the nerd's shield. The system shows that he couldn't reverse skills cast by others, like Kio Xi's. Kio Xi realizes what this means. He wonders if it means he can reverse his own skills. He activates the Mirror World skill on his entangling vines. Suddenly, he uses a skill called Chaotic Thorns that spreads across the battlefield. One of the monsters tries to attack the nerd with its massive club, but it's struck in the face by a red fist. It came from another demonic creature, leaving Kio Xi confused. Kio Xi thinks that the effects were completely reversed. Instead of immobilizing, it now caused confusion. He sees the skill now causes units to randomly attack any other target. Even the most useless skill becomes powerful after being reversed. He wonders what would happen if he reversed the rest of them as well. The Mirror World skill really lived up to its reputation as a hidden SSF rank ability. It not only applies opposite skill effects, but also creates a total enhancement. If he had used the normal version of the skill, not only would the success rate be low, but the duration of the restraint would be too. It would never reach its current potential. So, what if he reversed his remaining skills? Kio Xi looks at his enhanced hit skill, which grants a 5% attack bonus to a unit for 30 seconds. He selects it to be reversed. It becomes Trick Blade, which grants a 10% attack bonus per mana consumed and lasts for 60 seconds. The protagonist activates it, thinking that it even gives more attack power. The blade activates with a 60-second countdown. He thinks that simply activating any skill makes it stronger. He notices he's leveled up to level 6 and has gained more of each of his attributes. Kio Xi reflects that some monsters must have died fighting each other. They give a decent amount of experience. A demon lunges with its sword, which the protagonist parries. He notes that leveling up fully restores his mana. It was time for him to test his Trick Blade. He activates the Chaotic Thorns skill, and the blade increases its effect more and more. The protagonist repeats this until he's out of mana. He gains a 120% attack bonus and thinks about how quickly he achieved it. This skill broke all conventions. He charges towards a large demon. Kio Xi moves his blade swiftly, deflecting the blow from the demon's club. Then he cuts it in half with all his might. Kio Xi is stunned by this. He wonders if this is really Kio Xi, a level 5 singer with this kind of power. The protagonist thinks that with his level 6 stats, 120 mana, and 1 mana per second regeneration, he can theoretically reach 2.3 times his attack power. So with his current strength, he can barely handle these elite level monsters. Then a red explosion rocks the dungeon. The protagonist looks on in awe as a level 21 battled chimera charges toward them. Its lesser demons follow, and the chimera rushes at the boys. Kio Xi shouts that this is impossible. Kio Xi thinks about it being a hidden level 21 boss in this dungeon. He moves his hand forward toward the creature. Chaotic Thorns failed to hold the battled chimera. That monster was immune to the chaos effect. Its claw gets closer to him. Kio Xi steps in front and tells the protagonist to pay attention. He defends him with his shield. Kio Xi looks at the boy and is reminded of one of his former comrades. The blonde man called him an idiot and told him not to just rush in without thinking. He never listened. Kio Xi's eyes shine as he remembers, but the chimera strikes his new companion with its claw. Kio Xi is thrown far away. The protagonist rushes forward, thinking that the boy had a death wish. He approaches his companion and uses his healing skill to pull him back from the brink. He repeats this, and the boy's HP normalizes. Kio Xi thinks that a singer's healing skills were truly pathetic. He asks if he has any healing potions. He tells him to drink the last one he had. The blade's activation is at 110%. With a duration of 8 seconds. The protagonist thinks he's still no match for the boss, but these monsters were already near death. This should work. He tells Kio Xi to wait for 1 minute. The nerd is confused. The protagonist announces he's going to finish them all. He charges forward, playing with his blade for the entire remaining time, thus eliminating all the remaining monsters. The protagonist levels up and his mana resets. He then continues to activate Chaotic Thorns to increase the damage up to 400%. But the Trick Blade had only 60 seconds left, and he was casting the Thorns 40 times in 50 seconds. This means he needs to reach level 10. Kio Xi watches in awe as Kio Xi's level just keeps climbing rapidly. The Battle Chimera tries to attack the protagonist with its claws. Kio Xi looks at his status window. He's at level 12 now, and his Trick Blade has a 510% power boost. He yells that it's more than enough and lunges forward, slicing off the monster's entire arm. Then he leaps and moves his sword, making more cuts on the creature. The chimera tries to roar in pain, but both its arms are severed from its body. Finally, Yun Shi separates its head from its body and lands in front of Kio Xi. The nerd asks if he's dreaming. A level 5 singer had just cleared a brand new dungeon all by himself. Yun Shi reaches level 15 and the system notifies him that the dungeon has been cleared. Kio Xi approaches, asking if that was really Yun Shi. And how did he suddenly become so strong? The protagonist just receives a notification to collect his items. Then he calls out to Kio Xi, remembering his friend from the past. He asks him what his connection is to Qiao Benben. The nerd questions how he knew his great-grandfather's nickname. Yun Shi repeats, "Great-grandfather?" So Kio Xi is Qiao Benben's great-grandson. He was the great-grandson of that damn smug face. Yun Shi wonders why not everyone he knew had lost their lives to Lu Wei. The protagonist thinks he should be dead right now, but Kio Xi says they don't have to talk about him now. If he doesn't want to answer his question, he doesn't have to say anything. There's no need to humiliate him like this. Yun Shi thinks about the word humiliate. Qiao Xi says he doesn't know how, but he's been hiding his strength this whole time. They should head back to school, since tomorrow there's a field trip to the Modern History Museum. Yun Shi thinks for a bit and concludes that he can't reveal his identity yet. If he probes too deeply, it'll look suspicious. The Modern History Memorial should have records of what happened after he died. Inside the school bus, the students are joking around with each other. Qiao Xi looks one way and Yun Shi looks the other. The boy thinks that things had really changed. After being dead for several years, the world was completely different. To think they could now use products from dungeons to power carriages, and many other things he had never seen before and appeared, some he had seen in the dungeons from his past life. But this can't just be a monster reward that was brought out of a dungeon. The boy equips the Chimera ring, a level 14 epic grade item. Yun Shi thinks to himself that equipment and skills like this can be taken out of the inventory. They can even be bought and sold outside of dungeons. He had obtained the permanent skill Resilient Body, which reduces all physical damage. But these items couldn't be placed in his inventory. After defeating the boss, it disappeared along with the dungeon itself. He wonders what happened in the world after he lost his life. Outside the bus at the museum, a teacher explains that standing behind them was a statue of the supreme ruler of their kingdom, the emperor who put an end to the dungeon disaster, Lu Wei. He believes many students know that this very place, about 50 years ago, was the battlefield of a rebellion. Back then, when the world was ravaged by dungeons, everyone lived in fear, especially when the most terrifying SS-rank dungeon appeared. And their king, Lu Wei, personally led his army on an expedition. Despite suffering heavy casualties, they managed to conquer the dungeon. But at that very moment, he was met with a planned rebellion, and the mastermind behind it was Yun Shi. The protagonist's face darkens. That was the man the king trusted most, who became an ungrateful traitor. The protagonist thinks that they were the ones who cleared the SS-rank dungeon, only to be ambushed by him. The teacher says he can't imagine the pain of being betrayed under those circumstances, but their king rose above it, fighting with blood and courage. Finally, with the help of the hero Ding Kun, he managed to suppress the rebellion. Yun Shi mutters the name Ding Kun, wondering if such a person even existed. The delinquent from the day before shows up at the museum. He asks how those guys could still be alive, since everyone saw the dungeon appear. His friend wonders if the dungeon was cleared, saying there must be a powerful person nearby. They must have had incredible luck for that to happen. Yun Shi wonders who those people are. The students whisper amongst themselves, mentioning Ding Su's name and the new dungeon. They wonder how he managed to survive such an event. Ding Su grabs Kio Xi's shoulder, telling him he's lucky to still be alive. But this was the guy who had dragged him to the dungeon in the first place. He asks how Kio Xi plans to repay that debt. The nerdy boy replies that it was clearly Ding Su's fault, as he was the one who captured him and tried to kill Yun Shi. Ding Su scoffs, asking what's wrong with his head, as he seems to have no grasp of the situation. He tells him to look at the statue in front of them. That's his ancestor, kneeling before the hero. That's the traitor, Qiao En. And he is his descendant, so no one will side with him. Ding Su shouts that he can insult him, but not his ancestor. Kio Xi is stunned at how he's twisting the situation around. A crowd gathers to see what's happening. A student remarks that Ding Su's grandfather is the hero Ding Kun. The one next to him must be Kio Xi, the descendant of Qiao En. A traitor's kin is insulting the hero. His ancestor killed so many people. If the hero hadn't stopped him, many more would have died. Ding Su says he can say whatever he wants, but he shouldn't insult his ancestor right in front of him. The teacher approaches, saying he'll be fair and say a few words in the name of justice. Kio Xi should apologize for what happened. The hero spared his family. If he can't feel gratitude, he shouldn't insult him. This leaves Kio Xi speechless. Ding Su grabs his head and tells him to look around. Even if he beat him up right now, people would just cheer. That's because no one is going to help a vicious dog like him, especially a despised one. He still thought that he, the descendant of the hero, was in the wrong. He then closes in with his fist raised, saying this is for his ancestor's honor. He can't let this go unpunished. But then, a kick connects with his face. Yun Shi easily knocks Ding Su down, impressing the nerdy boy. The protagonist asks if the hero's family never taught their brats any manners. The crowd wonders if that's really Yun Shi. He seems like a completely different person being able to hit Ding Su like that. Is he crazy? Now he's even insulting the hero's family. They remember he's only level 5, the weakest in his class, and yet he dared to hit the hero's grandson. That guy has no parents and is too much of an idiot to have friends. His brain must have finally snapped. Ding Su gets up, wiping blood from his face. He says Yun Xie is just a punching bag and should be grateful he hadn't come after him yet, and he still dared to attack him while he wasn't looking. His friends move forward, saying they'll deal with them both. Yun Xie just murmurs. He dodges and lands a single blow on each of Ding Su's lackeys, knocking them out. The hero's grandson falls to his knees. He spits more blood as the people around him start to laugh and take pictures. The boy can't believe he was defeated by this Yun Xie. People comment that he was forced to his knees so casually. Ding Su is actually pretty weak. The hero's grandson unleashes his fury skill, boosting his attack by 25%. He screams that a mere piece of level 5 trash couldn't possibly be this strong. This must have been a lucky hit. The boy draws his fire hammer, charging at the protagonist with the weapon. Yun Xie simply comments that he has too many openings. He strikes Ding Su's chin as his trick blade's power is increased by 80%. Ding Su wonders how this is possible and receives another kick to the head before falling to the ground completely. An officer approaches the fight asking what happened and what they're doing there. Someone asks if Ding Su was really defeated by a healer. The crowd comments that he's supposed to be just a level 5, but he doesn't seem like it. He must have hidden his real level. The officer says that fighting is forbidden inside the hall and asks the teacher if he can't control his students. The teacher approaches the fight, stating that Yun Xie insulted a hero and even attacked his descendant. He draws his weapon, calling him shameless. Yun Xie moves his ring. The chimera's body easily shatters the teacher's weapon. Everyone watching is in shock. Yun Xie says, "You shouldn't be talking about who's shameless. A teacher is supposed to be fair, but it seems you only listen to Ding Su's side of the story." He questions if the teacher is just trying to curry favor with his family, but the teacher tells him to stop talking nonsense. How could he do that? The teacher then notices the ring. He hadn't used his full strength, but he was still blocked. Yun Xie says it was just a casual warning and that he didn't think the teacher was that kind of person. The teacher clears his throat. Of course, he says, "I will investigate the cause of this conflict." He wonders what kind of backing Yun Xie has. The protagonist looks at the damaged ring and thinks that even as an epic item, it was dropped by a level 21 lord. It took too much damage against a level 35 teacher. The teacher announces that as punishment, they will simply be expelled from the hall. He leaves, telling Kio Xi to come with him. The nerdy boy runs towards Yun Xie. The crowd comments that he was able to block a teacher, something no other student has done. That teacher shouts for someone to use a healing spell on Ding Su, and one of the students complies. Outside the museum, Yun Xie wonders if none of his old companions survived it after all. He then looks at Kio Xi, who is looking at him with admiration. He realizes that if he asks Kio Xi anything now, he'll answer without a second thought. He says his own knowledge is lacking and asks about the hero, Ding Kun. Kio Xi repeats the name, saying he's not sure if the story is correct. But apparently, he discovered the great villain Yun Xie's conspiracy beforehand. He then prepared an ambush at the SSF-ranked dungeon to crush the rebellion. Yun Xie thinks about the ambush near the dungeon. He remembers when he and his companions were sitting on a sea of bodies, until knights in armor appeared before them and began to slaughter everyone. Yun Xie screams in anger at the memory. Kio Xi continues, saying that hero Ding Kun aspired to solve the dungeon crisis from a young age and trained hard to do so. After being promoted by the king, he fought for the country for years, saving many places from disaster, such as the great and famous Winterfell city cataclysm. The protagonist reflects on this, remembering that he was the one who solved that crisis. Then he asks about the sword the statue is holding. Kio Xi says it's the sword used to execute Yun Xie, and that it looks like a high-grade weapon. Yun Xie realizes that not only were his glory and achievements stolen, but they even took his sword. He decides he will take Ding Kun's life first. In another part of the city, outside the Ding family compound, guards patrol the perimeter. Suddenly, one of them glances back, but it was just Yun Xie and Kio Xi walking by. The blonde guard turns back, muttering that it was just some brats. Yun Xie notes that the guard is always on alert. He must have some kind of patrol-type skill. Kio Xi says they should just leave because there were many guards. Even if they could sneak in the moment Ding Su returned, they would be finished. The protagonist wants to go in and take the hero Ding Kun's life directly. According to Kio Xi, he spends all his time in a high-level dungeon, and unlike in his past life, no one can enter them freely anymore. High-level dungeons are now guarded by the army, and you need a special pass to get in. In any case, the Ding family must have one of those passes in their home. He then wonders why the family needs so many guards, since there are only about a dozen of Ding Kun's descendants. Kio Xi explains that they are all the hero's grandchildren, and they even have a dungeon on their property. The protagonist is confused and asks about a dungeon in their house. His nerdy friend says that low-level dungeons can be bought and sold privately, but it wasn't something that people without power and influence could dream of having. Ding Su has guards watching him all the time, so he can level up as much as he wants, but students like them can only do so during practical classes. Yun Xie says that this era has really changed a lot, and that means the richer and more powerful you are, the higher your level can get. Kio Xi confirms. An ordinary person usually graduates from school at level 15 or 20. After that, Most people don't have access to dungeons, so they stay at that level. But if they get a related job like a miner or a guard in a national dungeon, they might reach level 30 by the time they're 50. The guards at the Ding estate are around that level. To get stronger, you have to enlist in the army or join an official organization like a guild. Only then can you enter high-level dungeons and climb higher. The protagonist thinks that if he wants to get stronger, that pass is essential. Kio Xi suggests they just go back. The level difference is too high. No matter how skilled Yun She is, he's no match for them. Yun She knows that with his current strength, he's far from being able to defeat the hero, let alone Lu Wei. He reflects that in any case, those patrol skills are around level 30 and only cover a small area. Skills like Eagle Eye or Keen Hearing aren't nearly enough to cover the entire mansion, and this isn't a life or death dungeon. Most of these guards are too complacent. It's more than enough for him to get inside. Kio Xi asks how he can call them complacent. Yun Shi thinks that compared to the near-perfect patrollers in high-level dungeons, these guys are relaxed. Kio Xi argues that even if they get in, they'll just die for nothing. He asks why they should stay there, until the protagonist pulls him by the shirt. He asks the boy if he doesn't want to change his life. Kio Xi says of course he does. If he could just join a guild, he would. Yun Shi asks if he could really change things that way. He is, after all, the great-grandson of the traitor Qiao En. The boy looks down. The protagonist says you can only change your destiny by acting now. You can't bet on a future you're not willing to fight for. At least he's not going to let a dungeon right in front of him go to waste. The boy has to decide if he's going to follow. He wonders if his friend's descendant will make the same choice. Kio Xi gulps and gets to his feet, following the protagonist. He thinks to himself that he can't let him get killed. Yun Shi tells him to be quiet, noting that there are no traces of summoned sentries nearby, so if they keep their voices down and stay out of their line of sight, with one high jump and by moving at just the right moment, he can easily get in. Kio Xi points out the entrance to the dungeon, which extends underground. The level was a little higher than the last dungeon. Yun She notes that the number of monsters isn't high. It's probably because Ding Su's family clears it out regularly. There were only 2 small monsters, and Kio Xi was supposed to try and face them. The nerd asked why he should even fight, since there was no way to win, but he blocked the monster's strike, shouting that he couldn't believe he trusted him. A zombie tried to bite him, and Kio Xi muttered that he shouldn't have come. He just wanted to go home using his shield to block another monster. Yun Shi told him he should at least fight back. Kio Xi asked how he was supposed to find a chance to counterattack. The protagonist explained that he was watching, and nothing bad would happen. Kio Xi took a breath, then struck a zombie with his shield. The other one tried to attack from behind, but the boy narrowly dodged. Yun Shi thought that it was just as he expected. His talent was good. Even though he was timid and panicked easily, he could only defend. But his judgment of spatial positioning was extremely precise. It was as if even in a dangerous situation, he wouldn't lose much health. He couldn't expect much more. Most people stop moving simply because they lack the courage to challenge themselves. Yun Shi moved in, cutting down the creatures and thinking that his friend's grandson had taken the first step. Kio Xi noticed he had leveled up to 7 and had 3 more points. The protagonist commented that experience is distributed based on contribution. If he hadn't fought back, he wouldn't have gained any experience. Yun Shi was wielding a resentful bone sword which had 62 attack power and 11 spiritual attack. He reflected that his movements were very agile and wondered how he allocated his attribute points, while Kio Xi said that aside from spirit, he places them evenly. The protagonist said that shield bearers don't normally add points to agility. Kio Xi explained that it would be hard to find a party at school if he didn't. Everyone expects a slow shield bearer, but that the monster suddenly attacked the others. Yun Shi said he had a long-term perspective. The advanced class promotion after level 60 has requirements, and the Bastion Fortress demands stamina and defense, so if he can't just distribute points randomly. Kio Xi mentioned that most ordinary people aim for level 40. He couldn't even think about level 60 since that was S rank. Yun Shi touched his shoulder and said that from now on he should think that way, but not just S rank beyond it. He reflected that, just as he said, he should plan his own class advancement. His support class was only strong thanks to his hidden ability. If nothing unexpected happened, that would probably change. But the protagonist noticed his mirror world ability had gained 2,000 elements and could be leveled up. Sometime later, more zombies were attacked with the sword. Yun Shi defeated them all with ease, stopping as soon as his trick blade ability's duration hit 0. A zombie tried to retaliate and the protagonist dodged, thinking that he hadn't lost any health yet. His attack enhancement had disappeared. It seemed the duration of Trick Blade had also run out. The skill was powerful, but it couldn't sustain long battles. His stamina couldn't handle prolonged fights either, but he was leveling up faster than most and had gained 2 levels. He noted that killing these monsters gave experience to the mirror world. Then he noticed something and turned, backing away. He saw that the Ding family's guards were patrolling the area frequently. He wondered if they had noticed the intrusion. Kio Xi commented that there were fewer monsters, but it was still risky. The protagonist thought he was right. He needed to watch the guards while they fought, and he still had to calculate the duration of the Trick Blade's boost. That was a lot for him right now. Judging by the skill the book had dropped, or he creates a barrier on intangible objects in its reverse version, he still needed 30% for the mirror world to level up. Even at level 1, the reverse ability was absurdly strong. He imagined how powerful it would be after evolving. Then he looked down, thinking that if he killed the dungeon boss, he might reach level 2 directly. Other dungeons didn't grant skill experience, so he should check the boss's central area. He noticed that the rat and crow summons were becoming more frequent too. Turning back, he saw a monster chained to a throne with several adventurers approaching. Kio Xi said it was a controlled dungeon boss. It was his first time seeing one. The school's dungeon boss was also guarded by teachers. These must be high-level pieces of equipment. Yun Shi stared coldly, thinking that with so many guards sneaking around, attacking the boss wouldn't be a good idea. At his level, he couldn't kill the boss while it was under such heavy surveillance. A guard was taking a piss against the dungeon wall. The protagonist tried to attack him from behind, thinking he should deal with the guards first. The guard suffered a bleeding status and was thrown to the ground. Yun Shi said he was going to interrogate him for information now and that he'd better talk. The guard trembled in fear and asked what he wanted to know, saying he'd tell him everything. The Ding family didn't pay him enough to die for them. Yun Shi thought that asking was his main goal. The guard repeated what he knew about the dungeon passes. The old master has piles of them, so they weren't rare. He thought to himself that this guy must be one of the hero grandfather's fanatics. And it was true. He had seen the old master pass them off for study several times, leaving them with the head guard. But they were temporary, unregistered passes. Without help from someone on the inside, they would definitely be questioned about them. The protagonist told him not to worry and to empty his inventory first. Outside the dungeon, in the Ding family complex, the protagonist questioned if he only had a singer skill book. That guard said the Ding family is greedy. Most things are confiscated, and they only get the scraps. The protagonist learned Baptism of the Sun, where after being healed, he gains 3% defense. Reversing this ability, he gains 6% attack for 15 seconds after healing. The guard led him to the Ding family's inner residence and said guards couldn't enter without an invitation. Except for the young master Ding Su, everyone was above level 30 with good items. They didn't really need them as guards. Yun Shi questioned if the pass was really inside the house, but the guard told him the family leader was in there. The one with the mustache was level 42, and he would definitely lose to him. The old master and the third leader are level 50. But they were away on business. If they returned, it would be even more dangerous. Yun Shi reflected that the inner residence had a level 42. He knocked out the guard and called for Kio Xi, telling him to stay put. The protagonist thought he just needed to lure him out. He returned to the boss area in the dungeon. Using these high-level chains to control the boss meant the dungeon wouldn't disappear as long as it lived. So they guarded the chains with a key mechanism. It was a safe method, so safe that no one dared to open it. The protagonist covered the guard's mouth and held the sword to his neck. Everyone in the boss area was shocked. Yun Shi thought this method was perfect for making the family leader come out, so he used the combat chains. The boss stood up, and the adventurers there asked what was happening. Outside the Ding family complex, the family leader now leads reinforcements to the dungeon. Kio Xi watched all this from a distance, wearing the guard's armor. The protagonist obtained a level 60 piece of equipment and reflected that now he could enter the inner residence easily. At the entrance of the Ding family's inner residence, a butler welcomed the second master and the young master. Ding Su commented that he had to greet him in this state. Ding Hao, level 42, remarked that greeting him was a separate matter. He opened the back door of the car for Miss Yun Shi, asking her to please exit the carriage. A blonde girl and a black-haired girl walked side by side. Ding Hao welcomed them to his humble home. Then he noticed someone in his way and kicked him, telling him not to get in his way. Kio Xi watched all of this from a distance. Yun Shi suddenly appeared and said the Ding family was back, and it was a good time to go in. But he questioned the strange look on the protagonist's face, while Kio Xi wanted to know how he finished so quickly. The protagonist explained that it was a dungeon boss after all. Even at level 30, they wouldn't capture it alive that easily, so he didn't need to get in the way since they wouldn't defeat it so quickly. He then asked what he had seen. Kio Xi looked down and said that person was his youngest uncle, Chao Li, level 17. Back when Yun Shi rebelled, his family lost their lives, but that didn't mean they wouldn't face the humiliation that followed. Yun Shi looked shocked. After that, the Kio family endured the Empire's cruelty at every moment, and under the secret instruction of the hero Ding Kun, the mistreatment they suffered only grew worse. In the end, they could only become servants to the Ding family. At the same time, the hero's family would occasionally show off its power and benevolence. For the Kio family's survival, they could do nothing but endure. His father's generation also thought about being able to change things. As a result, his father lost his mind and went crazy, and his uncle became a complete dog for the Ding family. He wondered if he was really right to have followed Yun Shi here. The protagonist said he needed to go to the inner residence and kept walking. Kio Xi tried to stop him, saying that Ding Su's father was there, fully equipped and level 42. If he was discovered, he would definitely lose his life. Yun Shi said that in this era where dungeons are controlled, if you don't take risks, you'll have no hope but to waste your life. And with some things, if you hesitate and worry too much, they'll never get done. He could help Kio Xi change, but he had to make his own choice first. Even if he chose not to fight back, he wouldn't force him. Kio Xi said they are a great family with power over the world and wondered if he could really fight them. The protagonist said the one he wants to fight is the entire empire. Then he moved forward and left. In a lounge, Ding Hao questioned how the dungeon lord's restraints were broken. Yunsha asked if it wasn't an inconvenient time and that they could visit another day. Hao denied it, saying his older brother could handle it. A mere dungeon wasn't more important than her. He said that after hearing she was coming, his father and third brother decided to return. Dealing with this would be the easiest thing. They had also contacted the hero grandfather, who was very excited to meet her. The protagonist listened from a distance and wondered if that was the hero of Ding Kun. He remembered he needed a pass and an escort to enter the hero's dungeon, and this person, judging by her treatment, had a very high status. Yunsha had the same surname, Yun, as him. He wondered if it was a coincidence, but for now he had to focus on the pass. The black-haired girl noticed a movement in the distance. Some maids walked by, talking, and Yun She entered a room. He moved silently until he reached a library. The third family leader said he had finally suppressed the dungeon boss. It was released with malicious intent, but he couldn't sense anyone's trace now. To take such a risk, it must not have been for just one piece of equipment. Dingy ordered his family members to surround the inner residence first. For now, the young miss was visiting and he couldn't let any incidents happen to her. Yun Shi walked around, thinking there was nothing but trash. He was using the facing ability, which allowed a brick-sized object to be phased. He then unlocked a drawer, noticing some diaries. He wondered if they were high-quality skill books. At the entrance of the Ding complex inner residence, Kio Xi wondered why all the guards were heading there and if they had been found. More people were coming. If Yun Shi didn't get out now, he would have no chance to escape. And if he didn't run now and they found him, they'd have another excuse. He remembered when he was a child and they invaded his family's house. He should just stay quietly in a corner, and at least he could save himself. So he moved, thinking that at least that would happen, until he remembered Yun Shi's words. He shouted as loud as he could to get the guards' attention. Everyone turned, realizing where he was. Kio Xi just ran away, thinking that he would lead the way, and they absolutely could not be allowed to find him. Yun Shi broke a window of the house while escaping and glanced back slightly. He reflected that he seemed to have surpassed himself after all and chosen to fight back. Then he shouted that he had the chain and the skill books, so they should come after him if they were able. All the guards who were there started running. The protagonist's new skill, an aura that slows others within 20 meters, was activated. The reverse version of it was also active, increasing the speed of friendly creatures within 30 meters. The second leader shouted for squads 2 and 3 to return and support the protection of the dungeon boss. He wasn't running away. He was heading right for it. Kio Xi questioned why he was leading everyone in the wrong direction. Many guards were leaving and the dungeon boss was under control. They must have been in a huge battle to get the boss restrained, which means its health is low right now. Taking its life will allow me to improve my mirror world skill. Inside the waiting room, Yunsha comments that it was noisy outside and her uncle didn't need to keep her company there. Ding Hao replies that it was just a petty thief and his older brother could handle it easily. The head of the family shouts not to block him because their speed isn't enough. They must go directly for the boss. He runs, shouting that assassins and archers should follow him to defeat the intruder. The protagonist notices he's being chased. He reflects that each class can add 3 points when leveling up, and half of his points were distributed into agility. Additionally, he has an acceleration skill. Around level 30, archers and thieves can normally keep up with him. The protagonist stands before the Paladin of Greed, which is afflicted with a bleeding status. He figures it must be part of the seal. So this was his weak moment, the perfect time to attack. He just needs to deal as much damage as possible and then finish it off in one go, while the army of adventurers is still grouping up. The protagonist charges forward, using his chaotic spikes. Everyone there wonders what that skill was. They had never seen it before. This skill inflicted a status effect, and human resistance was nothing compared to a monster's. They wonder how it could be applied so easily as a mage casts a spell against the army. A knight asks how it's possible. The skill's abnormal status was off the charts. Yun She advances, gripping his sword tightly. He reflects that he can at least get past these people to reach the weakened boss. People shout that he's there and has crowd control skills, but the shield bearers couldn't block. The protagonist reflects that they were a jumbled group with no experience in team battles. They've held on for so long and were on the verge of defeat. The rest of the group shouts for them to hang on since it's only one person. If they can just land one hit, he's dead. The family head appears and orders them to hold him. Meanwhile, Ding Ji advances, saying he'll deal with him. He swings his fire axe as the protagonist turns. The protagonist moves his sword, thinking, here he comes. He then murmurs, thinking that even if his level is too low to equip the item, he can't get its stats. But it was all about durability. After all, it was a level 60 item. He blocks the axe with the chains. He reflects that by using this massive impact, he can break through the seal's barrier. Then he spots an opening. Ding He thanks him for the push, calling him a bastard. The protagonist cuts down the dungeon boss, thinking he'll get all the experience. Finishing off that boss with extreme ease, he gains 3 levels at once. His mirror world skill is maxed out, ready for an upgrade. Ding Ji charges with his axe, along with the rest of the adventurers. Yun She looks at the system screen and uses mirror world without applying it to his skill, vanishing at the exact moment the axe attack was about to hit him. Everyone is surprised to see that there's nothing there anymore. Inside the mirror world, the protagonist was all alone. He realizes this is the world inside the mirror. He still has 30 minutes of mirror walk left. It wasn't surprising that everything was a mirror image of the real world, but the guards looked like mere illusions. However, they weren't just illusions. He picks something up from the ground and notices that a mirror stone can be taken. After reaching level 2 of the skill, he can bring things out of the mirror world. He wonders if the system interface will also change. Inside, he can see all the activatable skills. Then he notices that some were not yet activated. His basic skills were unlocked, and they seem to be the inverted forms of all his abilities. But first, he needs to learn the base skills in the real world to activate their reverse counterparts. This must be an upgrade. It seemed as if he could choose strong skill combos in advance, allowing him to plan his progress. Then he notices something behind him. Some souls are moving around. The protagonist wonders if there were other souls there. An undead creature charges in his direction. The protagonist wonders how that soul became this and swings his sword, cutting it into dozens of pieces. He thinks that it didn't seem very strong, but something appears in front of him. An undead contract. It allows the creature to leave the mirror and fight for him. It's also level 15. He thinks that after defeating the ghosts, he can take them outside as summons. So it wasn't just stones. It seemed that level 2 of Mirror World allows him to bring not just items, but even ghosts into reality. This is quite interesting, he thinks. Outside the Mirror World, someone comments that the dungeon was completely cleared, but the guy didn't come out. They wonder if he just disappeared, maybe using a rogue's stealth skill. But an assassin says there's no way, as stealth has a duration and form, so it can't be completely undetectable. Dengi grabs his head in frustration, wondering how they could let him escape with so many people around. He says that if they don't find him, they'll have to reimburse the dungeon fee. Then the protagonist returns to reality. Everyone turns their heads. Yunche comments that his mirror walk is over, and he has returned to his original spot. Dengi yells for them to capture him, but the protagonist tells them not to be so harsh. After being ganged up on for so long, it was time to return the favor. He releases a few dozen souls, declaring it his ghost army. The monsters advance towards the army, who wonder what they are. Dengi yells for them not to panic, as they were just ghost monsters, and he's seen hundreds of them before. The ghosts collide with a shield bearer. He notices they have status bars and are only level 20. Dengi repeats for them not to panic and to counterattack, because whoever captures him will receive a bonus. But the protagonist had already vanished from the dungeon, and everyone wonders where he went. Outside, Yun-She reflects that these ghosts were still low level. If he could get stronger monsters, this disorganized group wouldn't be a match. But among the ghosts he found, the 20 strongest were already contracted. Besides, the mirror world has an exploration limit. Inside it, he can only move 200 meters. He needs to explore the mirror world in a different location to maybe find a high-level monster. Outside, he notices a guard grabbing Kio Xi by the neck. The guard comments that Kio Xi is good at hiding, and that he thought he'd get away, but who knows what reward he'll get for capturing him. The protagonist slashes his abdomen with his sword. Kio Xi notices this, and Yun-She grabs him by the shirt, telling him they're leaving. The situation had become chaotic, and it was time for him to return and tally up his gains. The Ding family's army fights the ghosts and defeats them. They comment that these things weren't exactly strong, but they always revive after losing their lives, until they all disappear. Ding Ji, the third head of the family, sighs. He says they're summoned monsters, and if they revive, they'll consume the caster's mana, so they should just kill him as fast as they can. Another man asks if Miss Yunsha has returned. In the inner residence of the house, Ding Hao says he failed to keep her there, and that the intruder had been simply too audacious. Not only had he run around their residence, but he also broke a window in their house. Ding Dan says that an intruder really managed to get into their inner residence. Not only did they fail to capture him, but they also didn't know what he was looking for. Hao just accepts that it was all his fault, but in any case, Miss Yunsha had agreed to go to the hero's dungeon, and at least his grandfather's affairs didn't run into any trouble. Ding Dan sighs and says that after they find the one who did this, they should take his life. His son should hurry and check what was stolen. Elsewhere, Yun-She stares at a temporary card with the name Kio Xi. He comments that he got it, but he was missing someone who could take him to the hero's dungeon. But there was no reason to rush it. Just from raiding the Ding family's house, he had reached level 20. Besides, his chimera bone had been basically broken, but he managed to get more than 10 skill books from the private collection. The chants were all support skills. He learns the battle chant, which in turn unlocks the shield chant. With this alone, he'll be able to crush people of the same level with just his skills. The boss also dropped some equipment earlier that will be useful later. More importantly, his mirror world skill reached level 2. The necromantic summons could be used to increase his battle power, but it still wasn't enough. Based on the story's equipment, the hero must be at least an S-rank berserker. He needs to contract a spirit of at least the same rank and reach level 50 to have a chance of killing him. Choji asks if they are going to be captured. The protagonist tells him to relax, as they must have lost sight of them already, and they didn't reveal their faces. Choji sighs a little and looks down. Yun-She reflects that he was feeling restless. It must be hard for him at this age, so he calls out to him. He asks if any nearby dungeons were the site where someone powerful had died. He wants to find a high-ranked dungeon to get stronger. Kio Xi says there was one dungeon where a powerful person lost their life, but that was the school's dungeon, and they have no chance of sneaking in. Shi thinks that it was a monopolized dungeon, and he can only deal with it using his special methods. In another room, he gives some books to the teacher, who asks if they're for him. The teacher reflects that Shi must have strong backing. He says that the list of who gets to enter the dungeons is already set in stone and can't be changed, but the dungeon will be open for students who are about to graduate. If a student is particularly outstanding, they can join the tour team with a teacher's recommendation. He will do his best to fight for a spot for the protagonist. Some students comment that it might be the last dungeon in their lifetime, and they should defeat as many monsters as they can. And if it weren't for the hero's gift, they wouldn't have this opportunity. Shi thinks that something wasn't right with this dungeon. The teacher explains that this was the Valiant Dungeon, gifted by the hero. There were rumors that he once fought there, and traces of him remained inside. Kio Xi sneaks around and reflects on this. He thinks that the Valiant Dungeon was the place where the hero bravely took the life of the traitor Tiao En. He should tell Shi about this. The teacher explains that the dungeon's level was high, and they must be careful. Little Xi will take care of the two of them. She asks how he's supposed to level up this way, but the teacher tells him to stop complaining as the dungeon was open, and they should just go. Xi complains that it was annoying and he had to look after two deadweights. He tells them to stay behind him and not cause any trouble once they get inside. Shi thinks that it was a level 20 to 40 dungeon and wonders why he had this dangerous feeling about it. Inside the Valiant Dungeon, Sayu notices something and says that's why Sha and Yin also came in. They were two rookies from the school. Shi turns and says he has two rookies too. It would be better if he could trade them for Sha and the others, as he would be full of energy escorting girls. Maybe he could even date them, he thinks, drooling a little. But his colleague tells him to stop dreaming, as they were on their own above level 30, and he would be the one asking to be carried. He wasn't in their league anyway, Xi says he knows and was just saying. Then he looks to the side as the girls approach. Sha walks up to Shi, and the protagonist is confused. He thinks that she was that high-status visitor at the Ding family's house and wonders why she was approaching him. He wonders if she knew the original owner of the body or was just close with Dingsu. But the girl says she saw him at the memorial yesterday, and he wasn't weak with a unique voice. Shi is confused and thinks she was just talking nonsense. The girl says it was easy to recognize his voice when it was mixed with the sound of shattering glass. The protagonist realizes she recognized him from the two sentences he had spoken yesterday. The girl, dressed as a witch, says that now that they've said hello, it'll leave it at that for today. They will go explore first, leaving with her friend. Shi reflects that she recognized him, but didn't expose him publicly. It seems she was warning him. Dingsu must have recognized his voice by now too, but it wasn't as if the Ding family would come after him so soon, and it was fine. With his leveling speed, he didn't need to worry. Since they were being friendly, he decided to return the gesture. The protagonist tells her to be careful because this dungeon has a dangerous aura. The girl says that, come to think of it, this place did seem a little strange. And he was right about that. At her level, it shouldn't be like this. She thanks him for the warning. The other students comment that this was the same Sha who was usually so cold. They ask him how he knows Sha and if he can introduce them to her. The protagonist apologizes and says they should get going. The others question if he's going alone. The weakest monsters around here are level 20, and two rookies will lose their lives in a single hit, but she stops them and tells them to let them go, because for him to be on good terms with Sha, his level probably wasn't low at all. The other students say that Professor Lai asked them to look out for them and wonder how this could happen, but Xi tells him not to forget the purpose of their visit. The less they know, the better. These precious crystals needed to be shared among them. Anyway, everyone is equipped with signal flares, so they should just ignore it. Xi wonders why that boy was with Sha, looking like he had a plan. Since he was also so confident, it seemed like he was just asking to get himself killed. At the dungeon entrance, Dingsu comes running up. The professor asks why he's there at this time. Dingsu asks if the team had just entered, and the professor confirms it, questioning what Dingsu is trying to do. Dingsu had told his father about Yu Chen and Kio Xi, but his father tells him not to drag his personal affairs into this, just because he got beaten up at the memorial. The young master says they were there and that he definitely recognized their voices. Hao says the intruders escaped his guards easily, which isn't something a student should be capable of. His first uncle says they must have had the strength to overpower the guards and tells Dingsu not to bother him with it. The family head agrees, saying they were discussing important matters and that he shouldn't interrupt them. Dingsu insists he has to enter this dungeon. The protagonist easily cuts down level 20 stone monsters in his path. He fights a level 30 monster with just one thrust and lands several more hits. Then he calls for Kio Xi, and the shield bearer uses his shield ability, which lasts for 3 minutes. He uses other skills to enhance the protagonist's abilities. Shi leaps and cuts the monster once more, using all the skills he had. He gets close to the creature's weak spot and finishes it with a downward strike, with 7 seconds left on his trick blade. The protagonist levels up quickly and Kio Xi comments that he's improved too. Yunshe reflects that among the skills he got from the Ding family were Surrounding Shield and Motivational Call. They were practical skills that Kio Xi could learn at his current level. Besides, the monsters were high level and Kio Xi's skills made it much easier. According to the professor, there was a rare monster in this dungeon, the Obsidian Beast. Defeating it gave a chance to drop a support skill called Gravitational Pull, which was the skill he needed for his list. There would also be phantoms there, not just the obsidian monster. He wonders how many powerful adventurers lost their lives in this dungeon and hopes he can find them here. Until Yunshe notices something down below. He sees a dark creature forming and wonders if it could be. In the Crystal Pillar Canyon, several dark beasts gather. Yunshe thinks that there are a lot of elite obsidian beasts together. They had only traveled a kilometer beyond the normal patrol range. Wanderer-type monsters were a rare breed. They didn't have a fixed location and appeared all over the map. They were also stronger than typical monsters. Before humans grew powerful, encountering a wanderer monster meant certain doom. They can wander beyond the dungeon's limits and threaten human bases, causing countless dungeon-related disasters. But in exchange for this risk, the experience and items they could drop far surpassed those of normal monsters. These types of monsters were incredibly strong. He needed to test them first, attempting a slash on one of the obsidian creatures. He looks back and notices the monster is continuously regenerating. Other creatures launch their mana rays at the protagonist. Yunshe runs as Kio Xi's shield surrounds him. He's hit by a mana ray, thinking that the attacks are too fast and frequent. Even with his high speed, they won't let him dodge everything. His health and defense were too low. If it weren't for Kio Xi's shield, he would have been seriously injured. So he unleashes his phantoms against the creatures. He reflects that it's not good. Not even they could hold the front line. Luckily, these monsters were relatively slow. His defense and health won't improve quickly in a short amount of time. To defeat these monsters, he needs Kio Xi's defense after he levels up. He says they'll defeat normal monsters to improve. In the normal monster area, Yunshe reflects that there were weaker monsters around. It was the perfect time to help Kio Xi level up. On the battlefield, a shield bearer was essential on the front lines. Other classes stayed behind them to deal damage and help protect themselves more efficiently. Since Kio Xi had put all his points into defense, in addition to the armor he stole from the Ding family guards, he now had the defensive core of a true shield bearer and could handle attacks from level 20 monsters. Yunshe yells at him to correct his footing, prepare his stance, and angle the shield forward towards the blow. Kio Xi follows his instructions and blocks the hit, but comments that the shield's durability was slowly decreasing afterward. Yunshe tells him to pay attention to the next attacks, but he gets grabbed. So the protagonist charges at the creature with his sword. He tells him to always be ready for the next enemy attack and not to swing his shield so far to the side. Save that for the next time he has to take a hit. He should stay alert, but with his body relaxed and only tensing up to defend. He pats him on the back and tells him to keep it that way, because he'll be right behind him, and as his shield bearer, he must keep an eye on the companion behind him. Kio Xi cracks a smile and defends against the attacks as Yunshe says he must remember that when stats are close, technique decides the winner. After facing the creatures, the protagonist levels up again, reaching level 22. Now, Kio Xi can face enemies with confidence, which means he'll gain more experience too. Kio Xi says he's now level 15 and can finally learn this, using the shield armor ability. Yunshe reflects that this was the last book he took from the Ding family, and Kio Xi could use it. In addition to adding external armor to his summoned shield, he can improve his defense with this skill. He can now take on the elite level wanderers. They head back to the Crystal Pillar Canyon. 3 professors comment that there are a lot of wanderers and wonder where they came from as it's dangerous for the students. Lei En says they can handle normal level 30 monsters, but these wanderers are on another level, until he notices a student's signal flare nearby. Lai stands up and says they need to rescue the students first, and says the wanderers are the bigger threat, and what if any student went over there without knowing? Pang Zheng announces that in that case, he'll stay behind. Lai says that if old Bai stays, anything that happens can be easily resolved, but Yunshe interrupts, saying they should just keep their eyes on him. He warns that if a rescue is needed, even 2 professors might not be enough to pull it off. Lai calls out to them, and the protagonist says that these wanderers are slow and haven't noticed them yet. If they keep this distance to observe, everything will be fine. The professors silently agree. Lai agrees and says these monsters are dangerous, and he absolutely must not move on his own. He also tells him to stay hidden. The protagonist thinks to himself that if they notice him, they won't be able to escape. Yunshe cuts one of the creatures. Thinking that they won't be able to escape, the monster tries to use a mana ray while the phantoms defend the boy. Kio Xi activates his shield abilities, and the blow stops in front of the phantom. Even though it pierces through it, the protagonist manages to cut the obsidian monster. He charges towards the 3 remaining ones. Thinking there are only 3 left, he cuts the monster to pieces. With the creature's health depleted, a light shines on the ground. The boy reflects that luckily, he was able to handle the Wanderers and was getting more used to this class. Compared to his past life, he was still far behind. Even now, with his inverted skills, he can increase his attack power a bit, but the base attack of a support class was still too low. It would be amazing if he could increase his attack power just a little more. Finishing off a giant monster, he gains adventurer experience. Yunshe reflects that he leveled up again. Rare late monsters really give a lot of experience. Then the system notifies him to pick up an item. The protagonist walks over and equips something that surprises him. A crystal longsword that dealt 552 damage. The protagonist thinks this is perfect for his lack of base attack. Fighting would be much easier now, and so he swings the blade. Yunshe reflects that it's a shame he didn't get the gravitational pull he wanted. The drop rate didn't seem to be high. If his luck were better, and there were more wanderers, until he notices something red in the sky. He reflects that this was where the signal came from earlier. It was a special level flare that only professors were equipped with. Lai resists with his shield and analyzes the situation in front of him, wondering why so many wanderers are gathering there. A group defends themselves near a rock while the wanderers attack. Other people watch from a distance. Yunshe comments that there are a lot of monsters together and wonders what on earth is happening. A man says it's not clear yet. They came to rescue after seeing the signal. The signal came from the direction of the cave, so they must be trapped in there. They were organizing a rescue, but there were too many monsters. Even with professors together, it wasn't enough. It would be great if they had her help, and Yunshe says that it's her duty. She prepares a star magic and moves to auto-cast, activating her mystic art of light. The group's spirit and attack increase, and they comment that it's a strong skill, at least epic level. Yunshe uses gravitational pressure on one of the obsidian monsters. Her sister finishes the monster using a hidden spike. The group comments that they're very strong and they can rescue the trapped people now. The two of them are as amazing as expected. Yunshe reflects that not only the equipment, but everything was high level. It seemed that even if he wasn't there, they wouldn't have any problems. He wonders about the situation and what could attract so many wanderers to gather there. He says he's going to take a look around and that Kio Xi should stay with these people for now. He uses mirror walk to go to the other world. Yunshe notes that the place was covered in crystals, and they were all mirrors, so he can enter here anytime. If he hadn't had time to understand this mechanism of returning to reality, yesterday at the Ding family's home, he wouldn't have returned after the time ran out. He walks, thinking that people have phantoms but monsters don't. However, the bodies of monsters exist physically. Besides him, living things don't have a physical form in the mirror world. Noticing that there they were, and his name was Kio Xi. It seemed they were the ones who attracted the wanderers to gather here. They're walking through the Forsaken Land, so they should be safe for a little while. He doesn't know what attracted so many wanderers, and all these crystals were visibly affecting their path, until he notices something and wonders how this kind of item could be there. That was a special crystal ore. No wonder Kio Xi and his group came to this cave. Unlike the crystals of the outside world, dungeons can produce special products that don't exist out there, and professionals with life skills can use these products to create special items like equipment and accessories. These ores were just that, and their value was greater than or equal to their weight in gold. The system notifies him that the mirror crystal ore can be picked up and that he can return to the real world there. Yunshe mentally repeats the words return to the real world there, wondering how that could be. So this was the mirror interface, and he can return at specific places. There must be a lot to explore with this skill, and he needs a chance to study it. But for now, he needs to explore this place first. This amount of ore was a bit unusual. Digging up all this ore would be enough to turn a normal person into a billionaire. No wonder so many wanderers were gathering here. Outside, Yunshe uses a gravity spell on an obsidian beast. Yunyin finishes it with her dual blade dance. The group of adventurers wonders if all their skills are special grade, as they are very powerful, even stronger than the professors. The girl cuts down one of the obsidian beasts, clearing a path for the professors. The third-year group says they're finally safe and thought they were going to lose their lives there. Yan Yin tells him not to let his guard down. They still have to fight their way out, even though everyone is exhausted. Xia says this will be easier than before and stares at something different for a second. The third years tremble in fear at that sight. An army of wanderer monsters stood before them. They wondered if every wanderer in the entire dungeon was gathered there. In the mirror world, the protagonist cuts through a stone wall. He remarks that it's like a real labyrinth. Then he notices something, a different structure with a crystal on top. She wonders if this could be the dungeon's secret treasure. If the assorted crystals are special products, and the crystal core must be the one secret treasure. A treasure like this was a concentrated crystallization of all the dungeon's special products. It took a long and irregular amount of time for one to form, and a normal person might never see one in their entire life. He touches the green ore, thinking that every secret treasure without exception has a special effect. He notices this one increases his stamina and mana recovery. It improved his base stats and provided damage reduction. Increased stamina could raise his max health, and better mana regeneration would allow him to use Trick Blade. More importantly, It gave a 20% damage reduction for light and electric types. Percentage-based damage reduction was rare, even among the best equipment, but there was something strange about it. It seemed the crystal ores attracted wanderer species, and with a secret treasure present, the dungeon should have a monster stronger than them. He decides to use the secret treasure and leave immediately, but the system informs him that storing or using the item will consume 10 minutes of mirror walk. Outside the mirror world, the group of adventurers is in shock. Yan Yin and Sha had never seen anything like it before. The wall above them shatters into pieces, forming a creature larger than the obsidian monsters and even more terrifying. The group wonders if it could be the lord of the wanderer species, a secret boss. A wanderer lord could exist independently of the dungeon boss. It was a rare hidden boss. Its strength was equal to or greater than a normal boss, far beyond what teachers or students could fight. A shield bearer defends the area as the group comments that wanderer lords only appeared in high-level dungeons. They wonder what kind of dungeon could have such a monster. At this rate, they would all lose their lives here. Yunsha takes a deep breath before speaking. She yells for everyone to stay calm. The most important thing now is to work together to escape. They can escape through the canyon right there. If they can get out of the basin, they'll be out of the dungeon. She uses her starlight mystic art, telling them not to hold back. Full power and push forward to the other side. Lee agrees, using his light refraction shield. He says that at the very least, the students have to get out. Starting with him, they would lead in shifts to improve the group's advance. The Wanderer Lord tries to smash one of the students with its hand. They manage to block it, using multiple shields to mitigate the damage. Mages enhance the shield bearer's defenses while reading from their magic books. The battle in that area was intense against all the obsidian creatures. All the monsters simultaneously decide to fire mana beams. Yunsha screams for them to hold on, that it wasn't good enough. The obsidian lord lets out a battle cry, giving an order to its subordinates. The nearby monsters hear the call and begin to move in. As it walks toward the group, they wonder where so many monsters are coming from. The obsidian lord uses its crystallized aura, increasing the health, attack power, and defense of each of its subordinates. The group wonders how their power increased by such an exorbitant amount. Lai shouts that the damage is too high, and they can't heal fast enough. A teacher begs to be saved, but his body is struck by hundreds of mana lasers. Another colleague panics, shouting that a teacher has lost his life. Yunsha shouts for the shield bearers to stay in front, with priests prioritizing their healing. She reflects that everyone is exhausted and barely holding on, and the Wanderer Lord hasn't even made a real move yet. The group yells that it's useless. At this rate, they'll never get out of there. An assassin uses his stealth to try and escape, shouting that it's every man for himself now. He runs through the middle of the creatures. Lei shouts for the Wanderer class students not to follow him. The stealth duration isn't long and they won't last until they escape. The student runs past the Wanderer Lord. Lei notices something on the Lord's back. He turns just as the Obsidian Lord prepares to fire its mana beam at the student. They tell everyone to watch out as the monster strikes. Lei shouts that the Lord turned him directly to ash. The group tries to hold their ground, their shields barely holding up. A student yells that not only that, but in the process, he was blown down into the canyon. This attack power was too absurd. They couldn't escape from here. The Obsidian Lord emits its mana beam as the student repeats that it's over, and this time, it's heading for him. They can't block it. Yan Yin and Sha step out from behind the shield wall. They summon a stone mountain shield with 3,000 defense. The shield tries to withstand the blow. Yunsha yells for those with great strength to come and hold it. If it fails, they're finished. This level 70 shield was very strong and its durability was guaranteed. But because its level was so high, no one had enough strength to equip it, and it was difficult to move. They only managed to buy a little time. A shield bearer asks why the school's dungeon has this kind of monster. He thought that if they held on long enough, help would come, but this time there was nothing. He's relieved that at least those two kids didn't come here just to face this danger. Then he notices Kio Xi, who was supporting the shield along with the others. He wonders if they hadn't stayed in the valley. How did they end up here? Yunsha tells him to pay attention as the Obsidian Lord's blow approaches. Kio Xi uses his siege shield to defend the teacher, but it's pierced by the mana beam. The teacher thinks that his own defense was broken first, and now there was no one left who could stop these wanderers. Kio Xi deflects the direction of the wanderer's punch with his shield. Lei thinks this kid has the strength to parry blows without hesitation, but the shield bearers were all broken now. All their defenses were gone, and Kio Xi's shield and armor break. The wanderers prepare their mana blasts against him. Lei thinks they're out of options and hope this time, but the protagonist suddenly appears, cutting down everything in his path with his sword. The teacher's face lights up. Yunshi says that Kio Xi did well. He reaches out a hand, but the protagonist tells him to leave the rest to him. Yunsha advances, thinking he can dodge the monster's attacks more easily now that he's level 24. His total mana was 140, and his recovery speed was 2.6 per second, so his attack power could be increased by 330%. Trick Blade was at a total of 180%. The protagonist thinks it's absurd to try and face the Wanderer Lord, who is stronger than the dungeon boss. He needs to reach at least level 30, so he approaches using the mirror world as he still has a long way to go. The protagonist exits the mirror world at the perfect moment and lands a sequence of sword strikes on a monster. Shi repeats that Kio Xi did very well and should leave the rest to him. He presses his foot to the ground, activating and deactivating the mirror world for movement. He shouts for those with support skills to buff his strength, as he will take care of the Wanderers. Yunsha agrees and uses her Starlight Mystic art. Kio Xi casts his Siege Shield along with his shield armor. The protagonist cuts more Wanderers to pieces. He levels up, thinking that with so many of them here, leveling up would be much faster. Yunsha can only see a flurry of slashes. She thinks that he was just a bold thief, not expecting his strength to be beyond her imagination. Yun Yin was shocked by what he was doing. The whole group just watches the protagonist disappear and reappear as he uses the mirror world. His level rises exponentially as he defeats more monsters, reaching 28. Lei tries to warn him that it'll be over when the Wanderer Lord gets closer. No matter how strong he is, he can't fight the Lord. The shield bearers say the two shields are hard to move, and if they break, they'll be exposed to the Wanderer Lord's attacks. The group discusses that if they move, they'll be easier targets. Yunshe repeats, just leave it to me. He will attack and stay out of its reach, then they'll have a chance to retreat. Lei says that if they run, the protagonist will be left behind. Yunshe reflects that if this Wanderer Lord isn't defeated, it will gather all the dungeon's monsters and go to the outside world. In the past, most cataclysms were caused by Wanderer Lords, so if he stays, he'll have to take this monster's life. His trick blade is at a total of 350%, and his mirror walk has 5 minutes left. The group flees as fast as they can. Lei shouts that no matter how strong he is, the protagonist's stamina will run out from dealing with so many monsters. The sooner they escape, the sooner he can get out of there. A shield bearer asks if he isn't going to kill the Lord. Lei says he was probably just trying to calm them down. After all, it was the Wanderer Lord they were talking about. Kio Xi thinks he's still so useless. All he can do is run at a time like this. He hopes Yun Qi will be alright. The protagonist cuts through the creatures as if it were nothing and increases his level. He uses Mirror Walk to dodge the mana blasts appearing behind a monster, and then lands strikes with his sword, fighting even level 42 monsters. The protagonist thinks it's useless. Its defense is still too high. The small amount of damage he's dealing will be healed in a few moments. Just as he thought, he still needs to get out of there. The crystal on the Wanderer Lord's head must be the core, which means it's the weak point. It could be that his attack power just isn't enough. Dodging as he reaches level 29. There were 5 seconds left on the Starlight Mystic art. Yun Shi thinks the buffs he received are ending, and his mana points are low, to the point where he can't maintain Trick Blade anymore. He needs to level up first. He notices a strange light in front of him. Yunshe wonders what it is and sees the Wanderer Lord's hand approaching. He uses Mirror Walk, thinking that it learned when he would appear. Then suddenly, his health starts to decrease continuously on a large scale. Yunshi thinks he doesn't have much time left on Mirror Walk. If he doesn't dodge, time will run out. He can only use his phantoms to block, but resurrecting them will consume his magic points, and he won't have enough to increase his attack power later. He wonders if he should retreat and meet up with the group first. The protagonist notices something different forming in front of him. He asks why the young girls and Kio Xi came back. Yunsha replies that the little boy knelt and begged, so they had no choice but to help. Kio Xi explains that they had enough people to make a safe escape, so he convinced them to come back and help. The protagonist thanks them with a smile on his face. Yunsha warns that the hidden boss is too dangerous, so they'll cover him while he slowly retreats. But Yun Qi moves forward, saying there's no need for that. He cuts through the monsters with ease, saying that with their help, there's no reason to hold back anymore. The protagonist's level reaches 30, and the time on Mirror Walk runs out. He reflects that he finally made it. His attack power is sufficient now. Then he uses the Corrupt Knight's armor he got from the Ding family. Yunsha asks if he's thinking of attacking the creature's weak point. At this rate, it'll be impossible for him to get there. The protagonist thinks that what he wanted has finally been obtained. With the gravitational pull skill, which allowed him to bring objects toward him, he reverses it to gravitational traction, where he pushes himself toward the target. Yun Shi thinks this ability will launch him to the monster. He enhances his trick blade by another 30%, assuring them that everything is under control. He points in the direction of the Wanderer Lord and uses his gravitational traction. He's pulled toward the creature at superhuman speed, stopping above the boss's crystal. Yunsha and her sister's jaws drop, impressed by the feat. The protagonist lands several cuts with his amplified strength. Other rocks begin to react and are drawn in. They gather on the boss's back as the protagonist's health rapidly decreases. Yun She keeps attacking even while being hit by this large-scale attack. Then he finally cuts the crystal in half. The system notifies him that he has defeated the Wanderer Lord. He receives 5,000 experience points and the title Slayer of Wanderers. It also drops the Golden Light Shield and Angelic Protection Skittles, both of legendary rarity. The protagonist goes up 3 levels at once. Kio Xi says his friend was very strong, and Yunsha repeats that he defeated such a terrible monster all by himself. Yunsha announces that it dropped legendary items, and there were 2 of them. But suddenly, its center of gravity shifts. Yunsha yells that the monster has fallen and Yun Che is still on top, so he must be careful. The protagonist dashes away at top speed. The creature crashes to the ground, shattering the earth. Yunshe notices something nearby, seeing what's in the hole. Inside the hollow mountain were some fragments. The protagonist climbs down, commenting that they are the remains of wandering species and humans. This looks like it was from when the strongest wandering lord was born a long time ago. So that's the reason for so many intense battle scars here. He wonders what this is. A body was at the top. Qiao En defeated with a sword in his hands. The protagonist stares at the sight of his old friend kneeling. Yunsha asks if this person is the traitor Qiao En. She heard this was the place where he was defeated by Ding Kun, but she didn't expect this, seeing a sea of bodies while the squire just held on. It was clearly the scene of a desperate battle between monsters and people. It was completely different from the statue in the modern hall. This person doesn't look like someone who fell and knelt. Yunshe stares at it all in silence, reflecting on his life. Kio Xi says he probably won't believe him, but he thinks his great-grandfather wasn't a bad person after all. He spent his entire childhood researching his great-grandfather's history. Although he only managed to find specific parts of his story, the descriptions were vague, but he uncovered some details. He always went to dungeons that were far below his level. So why would an S rank like him, who was over level 60, go to a low-ranked dungeon? And the truth was, a wandering lord was set to appear there. This creature was the source of most cataclysms and could summon all the dungeon's monsters to the outside world. In the past, the government didn't have enough troops to defend against dungeon monsters, so they had to rely on a few powerful and responsible professionals to clear dungeons regularly. His great-grandfather had been one of them, and he came here to stop the local cataclysm. The rest of the group is shocked by this. Kio Xi says he probably thinks he's mistaken. His family also says he's just looking for psychological comfort, and that's why he says such things. Yunshe just touches his shoulder, smiling, and says he believes him. The girls are impressed, and Kio Xi just stares at his friend. The protagonist smiles as he thinks for a moment, reflecting that his friend wasn't that kind of person. Qiao En would climb on the bar table and shout that he didn't need a master after all, and that the old user should retire early. But in the dungeons, he'd scream for his master to save him while fending off blows from dozens of monsters. Outside, he'd ask who asked for a rescue, saying he shouldn't do it next time. Qiao En wonders if he's been found out again as he puts on his armor. He's the type of person who works hard in secret just to show off in front of others. He said not to worry, that he wouldn't let dungeons threaten lives. He chose Sword Guard as his advancement, the weakest class of squires. But that wasn't just because he put his points into strength and speed. There was no other type of shield this class could maintain. He would stand at the front of the group, saying the old user was really good at finding him, running from so many wandering creatures, and he couldn't resist gaining a few levels. Yunshe says that saving people was his way. He reflects that for his friend's sake, he'll put everything on the line against the Ding family. At the Ding family home, the elder asks if his nephew was telling the truth. Ding Su shouts that if he doesn't believe him, he can ask the teacher in charge of the dungeon. He says Yunshe was incredible. The teacher guarding the dungeon blocked the entrance and wouldn't let him in, but he waited until the people inside came out. Those adventurers comment that they saw the wandering lord fall from that direction, wondering who could have missed such a huge commotion. It was probably defeated by that person. His name must be Yunshe. So that was his identity after all. All the family leaders fall silent upon hearing this. The elder stands up and orders all the Ding family guards to gather and follow him to the traitor's dungeon. But he asks them to wait a minute because he had mentioned a brat from the Kio family was with him. So he orders them to bring the people from that family along as well. In the dungeon, the protagonist picks up the Book of the Golden Light Shield. He hands it to Kio Xi, saying he should have this skill since it has no level requirement. Yunsha comments that it's a legendary skill, and he's just giving it away to his friend. The protagonist replies that it's an exclusive skill for squires and he can't learn it, and that his great-grandfather probably used this skill a lot. Yunsha says he really doesn't lack for powerful skills. Logically, her skills were high level, but compared to him, she was still a long way off, especially that skill that suddenly took him away, or that other one that had summoned so many ghosts. Yunshe repeats the word ghosts. He thinks that he remembers, and they were all made of souls, plus other souls that also go to the mirror world with him. He notices something different and uses mirror walk, which had just recovered. The protagonist wonders if he can use this as he looks at the top of the mountain. His kneeling friend stands up, and Yunshe calls out, "Ben Ben." Outside, Yun Yin warns that they should leave because there's a ceremony audience soon. Yusha says they've really spent a lot of time here, and it was obviously more interesting to stay, wondering where in the world the protagonist could have gone having disappeared for so long. The protagonist looks down from within the mirror world. He approaches Ben Ben and says he never thought he'd be able to meet him again. He really wanted to tell his friend that it was all his fault until shadows take over Qiao En. That dark energy transforms him into another monster, and the protagonist says it won't respond to him. He has really become a ghost spirit. He doesn't want to fight him now, but the shadows envelop him. Yunshe appears inside Kio Xi's eyes and wonders if these were all of his old friend's memories. The moment he was cowardly attacked by Ding Kun. Yunshe wonders why his stance looks so familiar, but the memories fragment and the protagonist wonders what on earth had happened. He calls out for Ben Ben, but Kio Xi lunges with his sword, trying to defeat the protagonist. Yunshe tries to call for Ben Ben while retreating, merely defending against the sword attacks. He reflects that only combat instincts remained, so he needs to get out of there first until the system warns that he cannot leave. The protagonist sighs, commenting that he has no choice but to fight. Outside, Kio Xi notices something. The Ding Elder asks why he's alone and if his friends sensed them coming and ran, but that was just part of his fun. Kio Xi calls out to Ding Su, asking why he came here and if he was going to try and level up too. Ding Ji tells the Qiao family bastard to stop lying, because it was him who took Yun Shi to his house and stole his things. Kio Xi says he must have made a mistake because it wasn't him, but Su asked if he wouldn't recognize the sounds of that nerd's screams. The nerd is shocked to hear this. Ding Ji says none of that is important, and that he brought a little gift for the boy. Kio Xi realizes what it is, seeing his entire family gathered there and injured as a result. The nerd calls out for his uncles, grandparents, and even his mother. His second great-uncle yells for him to kneel. This little bastard must apologize to the hero's family and to young master Ding Su, and the boy tries to say he doesn't want to anymore. That uncle says he taught him this while he was growing up, and how he should act in front of the Ding family. Kio Xi says they are the Kio family, and they shouldn't be the Ding's dogs for generations. His family is astonished to hear this, and one of his uncles kneels, saying that for them, descendants of the vile traitor, being dogs is good enough. His aunt tries to say their whole family would lose their lives and that he should think of his father. He's gone mad and should know how hard it is for his mother to help the family. Kio Xi remains silent but tells his family to look at the situation behind him. His great-grandfather came to this dungeon to resolve the cataclysm before it happened, and many people ambushed him until he sacrificed himself. He has been collecting information about his great-grandfather for a long time, but he lacked real evidence, and now it was right in front of him. His ancestor was not the kind of villain who betrayed the country. The truth was completely different from what they were telling. They should reveal the truth to the public to clear his great-grandfather's name and not live like this. The Ding family had no right to treat them this way. His family should do something immediately, because the other branches shouldn't have lost their lives for this. Ding Ji starts laughing, saying this was childish, just as it should be. And he was right because everything he said was completely correct. His great-grandfather Qiao En was defeated in an ambush. He really wasn't a bad man, and to be more precise, it was his grandfather who had the good fortune to ambush Qiao En from behind, but nobody cares about that. Qiao En was an imperial traitor. He was very vile. The traitor's descendants should become a lowly family. And besides, his entire family knew all of this. Otherwise, he shouldn't even think about mentioning the people who lost their lives. Ding Ji orders everyone to kneel, and the Kio family does so without hesitation. The nerd's mother begs him to admit he was wrong and not to resist anymore, as it's useless. After his father went mad, his mother really doesn't want to lose her son too. She really couldn't bear it, and Kio Xi clenches his fists. His mother had told him not to listen to others because her son was the best of all. Ding Su laughs hearing this. Then he tries to kick him, saying he's useless and should kneel whether he wants to or not. Kio Xi just blocks the blow with extreme ease, and then he pulls young Master Ding's leg and throws him to the ground. Kio Xi declares that he will not kneel again. Ding Su takes a deep breath and summons his hammer, saying he really wanted to fight back, so he should remind him what it's like to be a punching bag. Kio Xi just strikes the young master in the face with his shield. The boy asks how this could be, and Kio Xi calls out to his mother, saying that they are descendants of a hero, not a traitor. Ding Ji watches this and asks how it was possible for him to become so strong. Su charges forward, saying he was just a punching bag he's been beating since childhood, questioning how he dared, but the nerd just knocks him to the ground with his shield. The family watches this, and Kio Xi comments that he is no longer the same person he was before. In the mirror world, the protagonist fights his old friend, exchanging a few blows. He reflects that this was Benben's form in his prime, and the gap between them was huge. If he weren't a defensive class and lost his head now, he would be taken down in an instant. Yun Che advances, thinking that he's the one who taught him all his battle techniques. He knows his weaknesses, like his back and his hand, but his defense was that of a level 60 after all. Even with the accumulated trick blade, he dealt no damage. Benben emanates a fiery explosion with all his energy. The protagonist thinks that this was the legendary skill, Golden Light Shield, and it was a pain to see this kind of thing. Outside, Ding Su charges at the nerd using his mountain-shaking hammer and calling him a bastard, but Kio Xi couldn't care less and just strikes the young master's face once more. He continues to beat him even when he's on the ground. Ding Ji says that little Su can't even defeat that brat now. His uncle would return the anger for him, charging forward with all his might. The punch hits his shield, but Ding Ji is surprised. He has to retreat when he notices it's the Golden Light Shield. Kio Xi says he should read between the lines that the hero's family are cowards who don't fight one-on-one. Yun Che cuts through the Golden Light Shield using his trick blade. He reflects that this skill wasn't just a defensive power related to the user's strength, but it also delivered an attack that tested endurance, and it can withstand at least 10 attacks. However, it was a consumable skill, and he makes a few cuts. Even the slightest damage would consume its energy, and when it runs out, it will shatter after accumulating 10 attacks. Ding, he shatters the shield and asks what does it matter if he has the Golden Light Shield. Besides, even if that trash Qiao En had used it, he wouldn't have cared. Kio Xi holds Su, saying that if his great-grandfather were there, Ding, he would be on his knees begging for mercy. Ding, he releases his energy, forcing the boy to fall back and defend himself. He questions what a useless fool who lost his life in a low-level dungeon could possibly do. Even if he were here right now, he would make him kneel with his gravitational shockwave. Kio Xi slams his shield into the ground, trying not to kneel. Ding Ji summons his axe. He wonders aloud how the boy will stand after he cuts off his legs. He then advances until the boy's mother appears. She pleads for him to let her son go, saying he's just young and foolish. She offers to kneel, telling him he can do as he pleases with her. Ding Ji scoffs, saying that if this little brat doesn't kneel, he'll take his mother's life instead. But then he swings his axe, telling her to forget it. He has plenty of other lives to take. Kio Xi tries to tell him to wait, but a blast of dust engulfs the fight. His eyes go wide in surprise as the dust settles. The entire Kio family gapes in shock. Ding Ji demands to know if this is the resurrection of Kio En, as the hero's shade defends his great-grandson. The mother calls out to the great-grandfather. The adventurers murmur, saying the traitor has been resurrected. They wonder how he could have possibly returned to life. His family comments that he looked more like a ghost this time. Yuan-Shi says that they had all greatly underestimated him. It was clear he came back from hell to settle the score. Qiao An stands motionless. Ding Ji shouts that it's just for show and orders his men to get him. The adventurers charge the old hero, who meets them with his armor and abilities. He effortlessly blocks their blows with his sword and shield. Then he advances, cutting down each of the adventurers with extreme ease. The family murmurs that he's too strong, that Qiao En is overwhelmingly powerful. Kio Xi thinks to himself that this blocking technique, fending off so many guards, is astounding. Ding Ji scoffs about summoning ghosts, saying he sent plenty of that trash home before, but he was only level 33. He advances, shouting that even if it is the spirit of Kio En, it's still trash. Qiao An defends with his shield and parries the blow. Ding Ji, feeling challenged, attacks again and again, but the hero repels every strike. He mutters about the blocking technique, but it's useless against absolute power. He pushes forward with his blade, trying to defeat the hero. His shield bursts into flames, but it's actually the shield's golden light technique. Yuan-Shi says that even as a ghost, Ben was S rank, and his golden light alone was enough to keep Ding Ji busy for a long time. Ding Ji orders everyone to attack together to immediately break through the energy, but he notices that his entire army is already dealing with the ghosts. Ding Ji dons his armor, saying this is just a little more troublesome. Whether it's Kio En or ghosts, they're just summons. He charges forward, saying that as long as he takes the summoner's life, the summons will disappear. The man prepares his strike, thinking he got this high-grade armor from his grandfather. Yuan-Shi thought he could fight with his strength alone, but suddenly, in the middle of the fight, Ding Ji is slashed. He tries to turn, wondering why he's suddenly completely disarmed. He unleashes a repeated claw attack against Yuan-Shi until he vanishes. Ding Ji notices he disappeared, but with no time to react, Yuan-Shi plunges his sword into his back. The man lets out a scream that forces everyone back. Yuan-Shi retreats along with Qiao An, who draws his sword, creating an opening for his master to advance. Yuan-Shi makes a clean cut across Ding Ji's body. He calls him a useless bastard and tries to turn, but Yuan-Shi keeps swinging his sword, moving to finish him off, landing several cuts on the family head. Ding Ji screams, crying out for his arm, now severed on the ground. He calls for a priest to heal him, but Yuan-Shi appears at his back. The man tries to use his gravitational shockwave to push him away. Yuan-Shi reappears far away from him without leaving a trace, asking what was wrong and if he was scared. The old man calls for a priest again, asking why he hadn't healed him yet. He notices the priest is being defeated by a ghost. The entire army had been defeated by the ghosts. Yuan-Shi asks if he really thought his ghosts were the same as the one back at his house. He uses his reverse malefic possession and says that thanks to the legendary skill, they are far beyond what these guards can handle. Ding Ji feels a moment of fear and turns to run. Qiao An slams his sword and shield into the ground to block the path, preventing escape in any direction. Ding Ji is terrified as the entire field around him becomes a wall of swords and shields. Yuan-Shi approaches, explaining this is an exclusive sword guard skill, the absolute sword and shield formation. No one below S rank has ever escaped this, but he's free to try. Ding Ji holds up a device and warns him not to come any closer. He's holding a void bomb, an S-rank item from his grandfather. He claims that if it explodes, given Yuan-Shi's level and health, he will definitely die. Yuan-Shi just tells him to go ahead and detonate it. Ding Ji readies himself, saying Yuan-Shi is courting death. With his high health, he can survive the explosion. Yuan-Shi replies that even if he blows up Ben, he can just revive him. He then lunges, saying that as for himself, Ding Ji won't even be able to land a hit. He severs Ding Ji's other arm, sending the void bomb clattering to the ground. Yuan-Shi orders him to kneel, and the man obeys. Kio Xi watches from a distance as Ding Su cries in fear, seeing his uncle defeated so brutally. Yuan-Shi places his sword on the back of his neck. He asks him what a value he has to leave behind. Hey everyone, did you enjoy the story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.